God. Eggnog is a hell of a drug. December 25th? It's Christmas!
Though you're so far away, Merry Christmas. How I wish you were near. Merry Christmas. Are you going to stay? Merry Christmas. It's been almost a year. Merry Christmas. Outside the snow is falling and the icy wind is calling, but I only think of you. I'm hoping that this wish comes true. Though you're so far away, Merry Christmas. How I wish you were near. Merry Christmas. Are you going to stay? Merry Christmas. It's been almost a year. Merry Christmas.
That was delicious. Now it's time to spread Christmas cheer to all in the community. But I'm all out of presents to give away. Wait a second. I know what to do.
Disappear. Though you're so far away, Merry Christmas. How I wish you were near. Merry Christmas. Are you going to stay? Merry Christmas. It's been almost a year. Merry Christmas. Guess I shouldn't be that hopeful that you take up my proposal. I won't bother anymore. But who's that knocking on my door?
Well, if I can't spread Christmas cheer throughout the community, I guess I can read something Christmassy. What have I got? X-Men Days of Future Past. I guess I could read that. Oh, hold on a sec. Yeah, this is kind of fitting. I just got a new copy of this in the mail. This is the one from my childhood. If there's one thing I love, it's the Teen Titans. That's right, folks. This is the copy of Teen Titans I had when I was a kid, when I was like 5 or 6, probably. And so, as you can tell, I don't think the crayon was that smudgy and all over the place when I was a kid. I think it's the compression of the pages over all the years. But look at that. I used to color in this. I did know it wasn't a coloring book, but back when I was a kid, I was obsessed with finding anything I could color. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just the idea of bringing something to life. But it was it was something I did all the time. I would go to the library and I would print out just as many coloring pages as I could. Whenever I was at my grandparents', I would ask them to print out coloring pages. So so here we are. Look at that. I was sort of aware of the coloring sensibilities of comics at the time, because I was reading them, so I knew what everything was supposed to look like, even though it was black and white, so I just sort of filled in my own sort of coloring. Now, I was very inconsistent with it. As you can see, I just colored in panels that I thought looked cool. Like this one here, you can see uses like the sort of sensibilities of the time, which is kind of like strange. I don't know if I had read any comics where this was how the flash effect was done, but I have read a color version of this book, and I happen to know that it uses the same sort of pattern of color, where the spaces are sort of red predominantly, in the infills of the lines are predominantly yellow. So I don't know where I knew that from, or if it just was coincidence, but yeah, it's kind of cute going back, looking at 5-6-year-old Ethan coloring in his comic books. I was kind of putting off making this special for a little bit because I wanted to sort of do up this area. I got my little baby Groot Christmas tree. I've got my copy of Teen Titans in the mail, which I was waiting for. As you can see, I've got not only Spider-Man 299, first Venom cameo, but I've also got Secret Wars number 8, the first appearance of the black costume, and the New Avengers Illuminati poster in frame. Because I've been putting that off for like ever and ever and ever. But yeah, I really dig in the new additions to the area. So, Teen Titans. This was kind of my introduction to the Teen Titans outside of the cartoon show. So I would have bought this around 2005, 2006. My mom took me to the comic book store and I picked out a bunch of stuff like Batman Fugitive, I think was one of them. Ultimate Fantastic Four, Wolverine, Spider-Man, stuff like that. But one of the things I got was this. And I had never read the Teen Titans in comic book form up until then. I'd seen the cartoon show, which came out in 2003. And so when I saw this, I saw it was something to color in, but also something to read. And I did. And comic books are sort of how I taught myself to read. And this was, in a way, a sort of formative addition to that journey. This is a very different Teen Titans. They first appear in Brave and the Bold, which is collected here, and you get the first 18 issues of the original Teen Titans series. The 13th issue of which is a Christmas special. Now, the Teen Titans at this time were not Beast Boy, Raven, Starfire, that sort. They don't exist yet. The Teen Titans at this time are Robin, Kid Flash, Aqualad, and Wonder Girl. That is to say, the Donna Troy version of Wonder Girl. It is sort of weird they don't feature her on the back. They've got a cast list of the Titans, and Wonder Girl is actually omitted from there, so that's a little weird. So to be honest, the cover's probably the best part of this book. The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. What do you want of me? Ooh, ooh. The Teen Titans swinging Christmas Carol. Of course, atop the hill that the Teen Titans reside in, there's a billboard for the Adam West Batman TV show, which is funny because you see those sprinkled out throughout the entirety of this Titans run. You can actually make a game out of finding each and every one, although they're not usually well hidden. So Robin, being the most educated of the group, is reading A Christmas Carol. The scene doesn't age particularly well. It's a little bit ironic in hindsight because this book was written in 1967, and they're complaining that Robin's reading old books instead of new comic magazines. So we cut to the junkyard where we find a precariously placed bus, of all things, with a sign that says Junkorama on the top. And it's evidently an Ebenezer Scrouge property. So one thing you'll notice throughout this book is that all of the characters have like horribly parodied names of all the characters in A Christmas Carol. So it comes off as really, really on the nose, and I guess it's trying to be, but it's not charming or clever or interesting. It's just like a really dumb story. It really strikes me as something that was thought up of on the spot. Basically, somebody at DC Comics editorial was like, hey, can you make a Teen Titans Christmas special? And Haney was like, I sure can. And then that night he turned in a script, and this was what it was. Mr. Scrouge, can we turn up the heat a little bit? I can hardly work. Bah, humbug, Ratchet. This temperature is stimulating. Keeps your mind clear on your work, my good fellow. Yes, sir, Mr. Scrouge. I'm trying to finish up so I can have the Christmas day off. You want Christmas day off? Humbug! You only waste your time and the good money I pay you. But, sir, everyone celebrates Christmas. Except for the Jews. That fossilized fuck. How am I supposed to get my kid an electric wheelchair now? Tiny Tom rides up after work on his little wheelchair and tries to visit his old man at his job. And what he finds instead is that his father had been sent home from work early so that Scrouge could engage in some less than legal activities, allegedly. However, the scheme in this really doesn't make any sense because, first of all, like, the situation is basically Tom's mother died, and Ratchet is trying to... I want to throw up every time I say these names. Ratchet wants to get his kid an electric wheelchair like he promised his mother he would do. Here's the thing, he clearly doesn't need this because this is a very snowy, very icy hill, and he seems to have gotten up it just fine with his normal wheelchair. So clearly it's not a necessity for him. The plot is that there are these sketchy-looking fellows employed by a person called Mr. Big, not to be confused with the Big Man from Spider-Man, and they're buying trash from Scrounge, and they've got this gun. I don't know how they got it. I don't know how anybody built such a gun, but basically what it does is it repairs old objects. So they'll buy like a scrap car or a scrap bike or something, and they'll shoot it with the ray, and then the ray will repair it and make it new again. That's not illegal. They claim that it's imported from other countries, some of this stuff, and I don't think it is. And even if it were, that wouldn't make it illegal. That's just purchasing garbage and then reusing it. That's what you want to do. That's advantageous to society. It doesn't matter if you're making a buck off it or not. It's not illegal. It's highly ethical. It's the most ethical business plan I can think of. So naturally, the Titans have to put a stop to it. Because screw the planet, am I right? Who needs it? So basically, Tiny Tom tells his father what he saw at the dump. The only problem is he tells him that illegal activity is going on, which simply isn't true. So naturally, when his father goes to confront Scrounge, his employer, and tells him that he's been up to illegal activities, or that the people in his property have been up to illegal activities, Scrounge tells him he can no longer have Christmas Day off because he's accused him of a crime. So as a result, Tiny Tom has no choice but to go and seek the aid of the Teen Titans. However, we don't see how he gets a hold of the Teen Titans. Do they have like a public line you can call, like the Fantastic Four? Are they just constantly screening calls? Do they have a secretary? He just gets a hold of the Teen Titans and they show up. We don't see how it happens. We don't see when it happens. They're just there. They're just there investigating. And then we cut to Scrounge's house and we see that Jacob Farley shows up at the door, who is the ex-employee of Scrounge, the ex-business partner, I suppose, of Scrounge, and he was in jail, and he shows up to call him a skinflint. This happens many, many times in the book. I don't know what it means. It's outdated vernacular, clearly. Basically, he's come to assault this man. He's escaped from jail. He's not bothered to change out of his prison clothes. That way we don't have to set up where he's been, and also so that it's a clear visual metaphor between the chains of the Christmas Carol ghosts and Jacob Farley. And I want to throw up every time I say that. It's the most on-the-nose, bullshit, lazy interpretation of a Christmas Carol I think I've ever seen in my life. And it makes me want to kill myself. So, the Titans see that Scrounge is being basically assaulted in his home because they're spying on him. Somebody who's committed no crimes, by the way. They're spying on him, and they break into his house to save him. And upon doing so, he calls the police on them for trespassing. So basically what we have is the most incompetent bunch of superheroes of all time. And so they just sort of leave. They just sort of walk out of the house because they are technically trespassing. And so basically the Titans concoct a plan where they come back as phantoms, and Wonder Girl comes back first, and she's basically just in like this weird sort of house coat. It's not really like a robe you would expect to see a Phantom of Christmas in. And she shows up and she flies around and she goes, ooh, and then and then the alleged bad guys of the book pull out their revolvers and shoot her out of the sky. And so she gets shot and she plummets to the ground and gets knocked out by the force of falling to earth. It's a comedy of errors, this book, both in real life and in fiction. But at first they totally buy that she's a ghost. So when you see a ghost, why is your first instinct to shoot the ghost? This incorporeal being, or at least incorporeal as you perceive it to be. I've never shot a ghost, so I can't say for certain, but I'm fairly sure that it doesn't work. By the way, all of these old Titans comics, for some reason, were split into like 3 chapters. So you have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and they're called part 1, part 2, part 3. And all of the books, more or less, are split up like that, and it's really weird and unnecessary. It's like a commercial break in the middle of a comic book. And I don't know if it was a spot to insert ads, but they tell you to like tune in to the next part of the book. But it's like if you spent 10 cents or 12 cents or whatever on this book back in the day, you're not going to read the first 8 pages and then put it down. You're going to finish the book. You don't have to like pitch me the next part of the book I'm already reading. That'd be like if you're reading a novel and at the end of every chapter, they're like, hey kids, don't go away. Tune in for the next chapter because, ooh, it's going to be a real doozy. So Wonder Girl wakes up after the other Titans come to save her, and then she gets picked up by her metal bracelets by like a magnetic crane that the alleged bad guys are using. And then so Robin gets his grapple hook and he swings up and he kicks the operator out of the crane, presumably to his death. I should also mention that their intention was to crush Wonder Girl, this 13-year-old girl, in a car crusher. So I guess now they are criminals. At one point in the fight, Kid Flash says this immortal line, which I will never forget. He says, "You've gloated your last gloat, gloater, 'cause I'm gonna." And then he eats shit. Hope he brought a toothbrush. So basically, like these mobster guys, they magnetize and trap the Titans, and then like trap them with their little gun that repairs stuff somehow, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever. So they, instead of repairing stuff, it then traps them. So it's not so much a repairer as it is like a matter transmuter. But even if it were, like, you would think you'd have to program it and have like a physicist or somebody operate it instead of like just these random guys. But so Tiny Tim basically like launches himself out of the wheelchair at the bad guys, like he uses himself as a weapon, and so they pick him up and they're basically gonna like kill him, his child. And so Scrounge has a change of heart, and so he saves the Titans by turning off the machine, and the Titans get free, which doesn't really make any sense because you think like the matter's already transmuted. Does that mean every time they repair something and then they turn off the gun, the things go back to being crap again? Because that doesn't seem to have been how it worked previously. But anyway, they use the gun to turn the wheelchair into an electric wheelchair, and then they proclaim that it's groovy, and then they all go home. And for some reason, because Scrounge didn't want to murder a child, he all of a sudden is like into Christmas, in presents and shit, even though like he was a bad person a few minutes ago. So somehow this experience of saving a child or whatever, of like his companions almost murdering a child and then not wanting that child to be murdered, somehow that makes him like Christmas, because you can only be objectively evil in every capacity or objectively good in every capacity. You can't hate Christmas and also value life, apparently. So that's that. No tragic backstory, no catharsis, just black and white to white and black. And that's Teen Titans number 13 from 1967. What a mess. It's especially funny in contrast because the next issue of the book is arguably the darkest story in Titans history up until the Marv Wolfman stuff. So you go from this like ridiculous caper with no message or logic or anything even remotely resembling creativity, with a story, if indeed it could be said to have one, that is so surface level, it's unbelievable, even for the Golden Age or the Silver Age, as the case may be. And then you're going to this like dark character study with like tragedy in presumed death and actual growth in characters, with like a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I guess the point is, if I've learned anything from this book, it's I learned something from this book